Good morning, Periscope, and to those who tune in for the replay, I hope you enjoy. And as you know, you can find these up on YouTube, usually by the next day. And so I'll get right into the lesson, and I hope, as always, that you enjoy. And so we're going to go right into today's Torah reading. And in today's Torah reading, we speak about how Moses was born, and Moses is brought up as a prince in Egypt. And now in today's reading, we read about how Moses sees an Egyptian man abusing a Hebrew slave, and he can't contain himself, and he acts and ends up killing the Egyptian taskmaster and hiding his body. And then right afterwards, we go into an event where it says he sees two Hebrews fighting with one another, and he shouts at them, for raising their hands against one another. And they said, "Aren't you being a bit of a hypocrite? We just saw you kill an Egyptian man, not too long ago." And now, worrying that someone has seen him kill someone and that he could be in jeopardy as the prince of Egypt, having just done this terrible thing, he flees from Egypt, and he goes off where he will eventually find Reuel, and Reuel being a priest on high, it says, and he will eventually marry Reuel's daughter Tzipporah, and as we know, return to free the Jewish people. Okay, so there's a cool lesson in it today, and hopefully we see how it's connected in today's reading. And so, as we just spoke about, we got this character Moses, and this character Moses is an interesting character because he's in this royal abode. And he's got everything you want, he's living a royal life, but at the same time, he's looking out his window every day, and he's seeing these people getting beaten up and getting treated like animals, like slaves, right? And on the one hand, he's doing well, but on the other hand, this isn't right. And it hurts him to see this. It hurts him so much so that he acts out. So, right away, we're seeing, an identity thing. What if, what everyone around you says is right conflicts with what you think is right, and right away we see, he is our example, if you will, and we see that, when there is an injustice in the world, you do what you need to do. You do what's right, and you step up for that injustice, and that's what he does. And so right away he does that, and then he's put in a weird situation. Why is it a weird situation? Because now he goes to two Hebrews that are fighting each other. And the wording is precise. It doesn't say, "Why did you hit that guy?" in the past tense. It says, "Why are you raising your hand against the guy?" And so the sages point out that this is unique, this is distinct, and that it's saying it's bad enough just to raise your hand to strike someone. It's for sure bad to hit someone, but the thought of even doing some bad to someone is bad in and of itself. But anyway, so when he calls them out, what do they say to him? They say, "We just saw you kill someone. Aren't you being a hypocrite?" Right? And so we got to see here that it's actually not the case. Why? Because Moses says to them, "Do not raise your hand against your neighbor." Now, in the case of the killing of the Egyptian, we're not talking about someone who's his neighbor, and that has to be the case because once again, these people need to be scrutinized. We got to put them, and we got to make sure that they acted in a just way. We need to analyze them. We need to learn from them, right? And so, as we move forward, then it's interesting. They say to him, "Who are you? You're not our leader. You're not anything like that." Now, as we know, Moses will eventually be their leader. And so it's funny that we all go through this battle in ourselves of like who we are inside and who everyone around us tells us that we are, right? And it's a very sad thing that we have to fight with who we truly want to be and feel that we are, and with what society accepts, what our parents accept, what our friends accept, yada, yada, yada. And so, we definitely see it in Moses' character. We see it in a Hebrew inside, yet on the outside an Egyptian prince. And how he has that struggle of coming to terms with who he truly is. And even though seemingly on the outside he has everything to be thankful for, inside Moses is a Hebrew, outside he's an Egyptian prince, and that shows in that he can escape being a Hebrew. He can't escape it, and he eventually slays an Egyptian for that, and he eventually will do anything for his people, as we're going to see, right? But the point is that, you look at the people that are homosexual, for example, and that whole struggle of coming out the closet, or people that are in any situation where they feel the need to have to hide who they truly are, and how it's going to be a big struggle with themselves until they come to terms with accepting who they are and letting it be outwardly manifest. Can't hide it. You can't just, keep it bottled up. And so eventually we see that Moses doesn't. He shows who he truly is, and that comes out. But what's interesting is that we have this dichotomy of, on the one hand, they're saying to him, "You're not our leader," when we just said, yes, Moses is eventually going to be their leader. And on the other hand, we know that it says that Moses was the most humble man that ever lived, the greatest prophet that ever lived. And so it's such a great struggle to imagine someone being both, on the one hand, esteemed by everyone as the greatest leader ever. Even to this day, we still use him as an example, as we're talking about right now. Yet at the same time, how does he manage to be so very humble? How does he manage, it seems like the two cannot exist, because to be a good leader, you need to be able to stand strong and confident. And it seems like a humble person they seem like on different sides of the spectrum in a way. Now, what we need to see then is that when you're identifying yourself, who you are, to be true and confident to who you are is not ego. That is not ego. Because that's what Moses was. He was true and confident to that, what he knew to be true. What he knew to be true inside to himself and based on his experiences, right? So when you go ahead and do that, you cannot say that is an egotistical thing, because it says Moses was the most humble man that ever lived. So what we're seeing here then is that to act true to yourself, not a show of arrogance, and acting true to what's right, is, once again, there's a fine line of that confidence and that arrogance. And he didn't show arrogance, he showed confidence. But at the same time, remaining humble. Remaining humble meaning that it says that he always realized that whatever he had was just a gift from God, and he felt that if anyone else was put in his position to do the same task, they would have probably done it better than him. That's all it was. It was a matter of realizing that he has a responsibility and he's going to do it. But at the same time, realizing that it was a gift that he was given, and that he was so humbled and honored to be given that gift. But at the same time, it says that he knew what we would have to endure in this final generation. He saw and knew, what the Messiah would have to go through as the ultimate leader. And through that, he was humbled. Through that all, he was humbled. And you can imagine he was closest to God in a way, would be most humble, because they're the most egoless. So it's interesting to see how he who becomes the most egoless, typically these great spiritual leaders, also show in a way seemingly the greatest ego. But it is not ego, as we just established. It is confidence and self-conviction in their divine mission from God, and what they know to be true in terms of the principles that they know through the experiences that they've had, and not based on what society tells them, not based on what's on the outside, but based on who they are in the inside and the principles they believe to be true on the inside. As we see with the Hebrew Moses on the inside and the Egyptian prince Moses on the outside. But eventually what we see triumphs is that you cannot hide who you truly are, right? And so I just want to make that distinction of being true to yourself and acting confidently for what you believe and your convictions is not necessarily a show of arrogance, but when done in the right way and in the right manner, just you taking your divine mission seriously. And nevertheless can reflect a humble estate, a humble disposition. And that was the case with Moses. So I hope that, whoever you are, you're true to that. And if you haven't been, that you start to be, and that you let that out into the public, take that mask off, And what we'll see is that as we all are true to ourselves, we inspire others to be true to themselves too. And as such, we see an awakening in the world. And so I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. And it says that on the third day, Tuesday, Pamaim Kitov, it said it was good twice. So I'm going to wish you, again, I hope you have another wonderful day twice. And who knows, maybe we'll have a double lesson today. Maybe. All right, bye now, and all the best. Much love.